Today we're talking about adding and subtracting decimals. Let's review by adding and subtracting some whole numbers first. So I've set up two problems here. We've got whole numbers, and this is slightly different than how we would add or subtract decimals because we lined up the whole numbers on the right side, so we justified it to the right. We are just going to add the columns going straight down, so 9 plus 2 is 11. So I write a 1 and I carry my 1 that's in the tens place. And then I add the second column. 1 plus 1 plus 3, that's 5. And then 1 plus, there's an imaginary 0 here. 1 plus 0 is 1. So 119 plus 32 is 151. And then I have 691 take away 27. Well, again, I have to look down this first column on the right. 1 take away 7. Well, I can't really do that, so I'm going to have to borrow. Remember, borrowing, we cross out the 9, we make it an 8, and then we cross out the 1 and we make it an 11, because we're borrowing from the tens place, so we have to add 10 to the 1 and make it an 11. Now I can subtract 11 take away 7, that's 4. 8 take away 2, that's 6. 6 take away nothing is 6. So 691 take away 27 is 664. That's just some basic review of adding and subtracting whole numbers. When we add or subtract decimals, we must line up the decimals. So this is our Vic number 1. We've got to line up our decimals when we add or subtract decimals. So this is slightly different than the whole numbers. So here's my first example. I had 6.92 take away 0.12. So I rewrote the problem vertically so that my decimal points were lined up. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and finish my problem. 6.92 take away 0.12. 2 take away 2 is 0. 9 take away 1 is 8. This is important. I have to bring down my decimal. And then 6 minus 0 is 6. So 6.80 is my answer. If I wanted to simplify that a little more, I could write 6.8. Those are actually equivalent. My next problem, 92.78 plus 16.90. So I had to add a 0 here when I rewrote my problem vertically as a placeholder. Because remember, I'm lining up my decimals and I had one less digit here in the bottom number, so I had to add a placeholder to make sure I'm adding correctly. So 8 plus 0, 8. 7 plus 9 is 16, carry the 1. Bring down my decimal. 1 plus 2 plus 6 is 9. 9 plus 1 is 10. So 92.78 plus 16.9 is 109.68. Okay, here's some more examples. I need to add 55.6 plus 0.73. I'm going to line up my decimals and put zeros as placeholders. Double check to make sure it looks right, and then I'm going to add. 0 plus 3 is 3. 6 plus 7 is 13. Bring down my decimal. 1 plus 5 plus 0 is 6, and then 5 plus 0 is just 5. 56.33. Okay, here's my next one, 16. So that has no decimal at all. It's a whole number. Take away 4.789. So I'm going to start with 16, and I'm starting with 16 because it was the first number in the problem. I need to make sure I do that. Start with 16, and then I'm going to go ahead and add a decimal to this number to make it 16.0, so that when I line up this number below it, I can line up my decimals. 16.0 is the same as 16. They are worth the same. They are their appearance has changed, but they're still worth the same. So I'm going to line up 4.789 and then just fill in some zeros. Not very pretty zeros, but I'm just filling in the zeros as placeholders, and I'm going to subtract. Okay, so remember our borrowing rules. I'm going to have to borrow because I have 0 and I want to take away 9 from it, and I can't do that. So I've really got to borrow, and I've got to borrow from the 6 because there's nothing here to borrow from. So I actually have to borrow from this 6 and make it a 5. I would make this a 10, but remember I've got to borrow from it, so it's going to become a 9. I would make that a 10, but again I'm borrowing from that, so it's going to be a 9. And then this last one is actually my 10, because 10 plus 0 is 10. Now I've got 10 take away 9, and that's 1. 9 take away 8, 1. 9 take away 7, 2. Bring down my decimal. 5 take away 4, 1. And 1 take away 0, 1. There's my final answer. Okay, and we've got this other one listed here. Let's see if I can find some room to do this problem. 1.45 plus 6 plus 0.0065. So I'm just going to line up my zeros. 6, the number 6 does not have a decimal. Sorry, I'm going to line up my decimals is what I should have said. 6 does not have a 0. 6 does not have a decimal, so I'm adding a decimal with some zeros as placeholders. And then here we go. Here's a long decimal. 0, 0, 6, 5. So that means I'm going to have to add some placeholders here. And I'm adding all the way down. I've got a 5, then a 6, then a 5, a 4, a decimal, and a 7. So I'll rewrite it so you guys can see it better. 7.456. Not too hard. Okay, I want you guys to try these 4 problems. Set them up vertically and line up the decimal when you solve these problems.